The night they dragged me to the hospital, I remember the sound of my mother's bracelets clinking as she signed the papers. My father stood behind her, expressionless, as if this wasn't about his daughter at all. Just another transaction. The air smelled like disinfectant and fear. I was 16, barefoot, wearing the hoodie I slept in. The nurse held my arm too tight, guiding me through double doors that locked from the outside. I turned to my parents one last time, expecting something, an explanation, a flicker of remorse, even a lie I could cling to. Mom just said, "You need help, Riley. You're out of control." Dad added, "We can't keep covering for your behavior. This is best for everyone." Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. Behavior. That's what they called it. The panic attacks, the shaking, the crying fits. They never mentioned that all of it started the day I found the documents, the trust fund my grandparents left me, hidden in Dad's desk drawer. It wasn't supposed to be touched until I turned 21. They didn't like that part. I screamed as they left me behind the locked glass doors. A nurse's shadow crossed the hallway. A key turned. The door clicked shut. I remember the sound of their shoes fading away, one pair slow and confident, one sharp and fast. Mom's. I spent my first night in that place staring at the ceiling, counting every flicker of the light above me. The room was white and too bright, the sheets rough against my skin. Every few minutes, someone walked by the small square window in the door. Their footsteps echoed down the hall like a clock I couldn't turn off. They said it was for evaluation. 72 hours, just observation. But 72 hours turned into a month. Every time I asked to leave, they told me I wasn't ready. Every time I said I was fine, they wrote down denial. When my parents visited, Mom brought expensive chocolates and fake tears. She'd pat my knee and whisper, "You're doing so well, honey. Keep cooperating." Then she'd smile at the nurse like she'd just donated to charity. Dad barely looked at me. He just signed papers, always signing papers. One day, I overheard two nurses whispering near the nurses' station. One said, "Parents like that make me sick. You can see the money in their eyes." The other laughed softly. "Trust fund case, right?" My hands started shaking. That night, I stole a look at my file when the night nurse fell asleep at her desk. The first line said, "Admitted by parents for delusional paranoia and emotional instability. Patient believes her parents are attempting financial exploitation. They'd written me into a lie, a perfect one, a legal one. After 34 days, they released me, not because I was better, but because they were finished. At home, everything looked exactly the same. My room, my books, even my pillow smelled like me. But there were new locks on Dad's office door, new locks on the filing cabinet. My bank card was gone. Mom smiled like nothing had happened. "We're glad you're home," she said sweetly. "You'll thank us one day." Dad added, "We just want what's best for you. You're not responsible enough for money like that." I stared at them, the words crawling under my skin. "It's my money," I said quietly. Mom laughed. "It's family money, dear, and family looks after family." I didn't respond, not when she handed me a schedule for therapy. Not when she told me she'd taken over managing my school payments. Not even when I saw the new car in the driveway, the one she'd always said they couldn't afford. I went back to school. Everyone whispered. Some said I'd gone crazy. Others said I'd tried to hurt myself. I didn't bother correcting them. Let them believe whatever version my parents had sold them. For 2 years, I played their game. I went to therapy. I smiled at the right times. I nodded when Mom said, "See? You're doing so much better." I kept my head down. I learned to make my silence look obedient. But inside, I memorized everything, every account number, every lie they told, every face they made when they thought I wasn't watching. I was their daughter again on the outside. But inside, I was something else, something they'd created without realizing it. By the time I turned 18, I was legally free, but my trust fund wasn't. They'd transferred it into a family-managed trust. I couldn't access a single dollar without their signatures. On my birthday, Mom handed me a card with a $100 bill inside. "Just for fun," she said with that same practiced smile. I said thank you. I even hugged her. But I was done being their investment. One afternoon, I came home early from work and caught Dad in the study. He didn't hear me. He was on the phone with someone saying, the transfer should be complete by the end of the month. Once it's under our name, she'll have no legal claim. He said our name, not mine. That night, I sat in my car outside the house, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. My breath fogged the window. For the first time, I didn't cry. I just felt the cold settling in. I realized something. They hadn't just taken my money. They'd stolen years of my life and made me think I was crazy for noticing. And that's when I decided, if they could rewrite my story once, I'd write the next part myself. But not the way they'd expect. I didn't scream. I didn't threaten. I didn't go to the police. I smiled. I stayed close. I let them keep thinking I was harmless. Because when people believe you're weak, they never see you coming. And that's exactly what I needed. 2 years after that night in the car, I'd almost perfected my disguise. On paper, I was the quiet daughter who had recovered. I sent holiday cards. I visited when invited. I smiled through dinners. But underneath, I was keeping track of every fracture in their perfect shell. They'd grown careless. My parents were addicted to the comfort they'd built with my money. New vacations, new furniture. Mom even started a small consulting business, nothing more than a way to spend. The invoices all went to the same trust account I was supposedly too unstable to manage. One afternoon, I found my chance. Their accountant, a man who had known my grandparents, called me accidentally after misdialing my father's number. "Miss Riley," he said, "we need your signature for a transfer. Your father's traveling." My breath stopped. "Transfer for what?" "For your personal trust disbursement," he said, confused. "It's your account." That one slip cracked everything open. He didn't know I'd been declared unfit to control it. I played dumb. "Oh, right," I said. "Can you email me the form?" He did, and just like that, the door they locked was ajar. I didn't forge. I didn't steal. I simply wrote to the trust's oversight board, the same people my grandparents had chosen decades ago. I included every document I'd secretly copied from Dad's office over the years, proof of management fees, signatures that didn't match, false medical records used to justify control. It wasn't revenge yet. It was truth. But truth has a way of burning like acid. Weeks later, I came home to find my parents arguing in the driveway. Mom's voice was shrill. "You said she couldn't touch it." Dad shouted back, "I don't know how she did it. Someone's reopened the account." I parked across the street and watched from inside my car. They didn't notice me. They were too busy watching everything they'd stolen start to slip away. The next morning, I got a letter. The trust had been restored to my name. Full control, no oversight. They'd been removed as guardians. I didn't call them. I didn't celebrate. I just sat at my kitchen table, holding the letter until the edges creased, and whispered to myself, "Finally." But it wasn't enough. Not yet. See, money was only one piece of what they took. The rest was reputation, the illusion of being good parents who sacrificed for their troubled daughter. That image was the air they breathed. So I found a way to take that too. I reached out to the same hospital where they'd locked me away. I didn't sue, I didn't threaten. I just requested my full medical file under the Patient Records Act. It arrived in a heavy envelope a week later. Inside were notes, signatures, timestamps, pages full of lies written in clean cursive. Patient exhibits signs of manipulation. Patient falsely claims financial exploitation. Parents cooperative, emotionally distressed. Every line was their alibi. I sent the file to the trust auditors, quietly, anonymously. Within days, a notice of financial misconduct reached my parents' mailbox. Mom called me that night, voice shaking. "What did you do?" I let the question hang for a few seconds before answering. "You should get help, Mom. You sound out of control." There was a pause. Then the sound of her breath catching. They were spiraling the way I once did behind those locked doors. Dad lost his consulting clients. Mom's small business froze under investigation. The house went up for sale. Still, I wasn't done. On my 21st birthday, the age my grandparents had chosen for me to finally own what was mine, I walked into the bank in a dark coat, handed over my ID, and reclaimed everything, every cent, every document. That night, I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by silence. For the first time, it didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like proof. I had survived their story and written my own, but the part that mattered most hadn't happened yet. The part that would finally teach them what it felt like to lose something you thought you owned forever. And I already knew how I'd do it. It wouldn't be poetic. It would be real. A year later, they were shadows of who they used to be. The house that once smelled like polished wood and expensive perfume now sat half empty and echoing. I hadn't spoken to them since the trust was restored, but word traveled. Small towns are efficient that way. My mother started showing up at my workplace, always dressed well, pretending it was coincidence. The first time, she brought cookies. The second time, she waited outside in her car for hours. I never went out. Dad finally called from a number I didn't recognize. His voice was brittle, the kind of tone people use when they've run out of authority. "Riley," he said, "we need to talk. It's about the trust." "There's nothing left to talk about," I said. "There's everything to talk about," he snapped. "Your mother's been struggling. We can't pay the mortgage. You wouldn't want to see us lose the house." I almost laughed. Lose the house. The one they'd bought with my money. The one with locks that once kept me out of their office. And kept me in the dark. "I don't own your debts," I said. "You made sure of that." He started to raise his voice, then stopped himself. The silence that followed was heavier than anger. "You'll regret this," he muttered. I hung up. 2 months later, the house went into foreclosure. I didn't plan it that way, but watching the auction notice appear online felt like a quiet, full circle. I didn't buy it. I didn't even go. I just watched the photos disappear one by one from the listing. The manicured lawn, the white porch, the study that used to smell like Dad's whiskey. It was like watching a memory rot in real time. But that wasn't revenge. Not yet. Revenge wasn't the money or the house. It was what came next. I received an email from the trust's legal office asking if I wanted to redirect a charitable portion of my inheritance. My grandparents had left a clause, a percentage to go to family-related welfare initiatives. I read it twice and realized exactly what I could do. So I approved a new allocation. Not for them, for the psychiatric facility they once used as my cage. The funds were rerouted under my signature, tagged as Riley Grant Mental Health Advocacy Fund. A few weeks later, I got an invitation from the hospital director. They wanted to name a new patient wing after me, the Riley Wing, supporting youth recovery. I went to the ribbon cutting. My parents showed up too, uninvited. They stood in the back of the crowd, trying to blend in, faces drawn, clothes that no longer screamed wealth. The director shook my hand in front of them, smiling. "Your generosity will change lives." Mom's face twisted, realization dawning. The same place she locked me in was now branded with my name. Every time she'd drive past, she'd see it. Every time someone in town talked about the Riley Wing, she'd remember what she did and what I became without her. She came up to me after the ceremony, eyes wet. "You humiliated us." "No," I said calmly. "You did that yourselves." Dad tried to grab my arm. "You think this makes you better than us?" I looked at him the same way he once looked at me across that hospital desk, detached, clinical. "No, it makes me free." I walked away before they could speak again. Outside, the air smelled like spring rain. I took off the name badge they'd given me and slipped it into my bag. My reflection in the car window looked older, steadier, untouchable. As I drove off, I passed them standing by the curb, small against the building that bore my name. Their empire built on control, power, and money had finally collapsed, not by force, but by truth. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony, sipping coffee, listening to the city below. The lights flickered on one by one, like small promises. They once said I was unstable, that I'd never make it without them. But now, everything they loved carried my name, and none of it carried theirs. When the phone rang again, I didn't pick up. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.